Hey everybody, Robert with RC Archery. If I were to tell you that I bought the latest and greatest whatever, and 6 months later it's now obsolete, would you think I was talking about an iPhone, a computer, an Xbox, or a bow? It seems a lot like our bow industry has become very close to the tech industry, where you buy something today and then a few months later down the road it becomes obsolete because the latest, greatest, newest whatever has been made by a company and being released. But is it all flash and no advancements, or is there something to it all? So in today's video for this Tuesday's tip of the week, I'm going to be going over latest advancements in bow technology, some information that I have as far as what you need to look for when you go to purchase your next bow so you get the best bang for your buck, what I look at for purchasing, especially with a target bow that you can't put your hands on. And then I'm also going to give you some additional information along the way. Now, before we get started, I want to go over one thing. I have redone the way that my Patreon channel is actually set up right now. So the content has been lacking as far as my time commitments and what's going on. So I've changed the payment structure and I've also changed the tiers. I actually now have 3 tiers. The first one is a $2 a month tier, and it's basically just a way to give back and to say thank you for any of the content that I put out on my YouTube channel, my Instagram, Archery Talk, or anything like that, and just something that if you feel like giving back to myself and my channel and what I do, then it's there. I also have a second tier. It's $5 a month. In this tier, it guarantees you at least 1 extra tip a month, so something that's not viewed on my Tuesday tip of the weeks. It also gives you access to be able to ask me questions, and then I use those questions in my videos and basically take that and be able to create a video for it, or maybe create a video with multiple questions depending on how many I get and what's going on. The third tier is $10 a month, and you get the 1 or more extra tips a month. You get the question ability to be able to ask on there, but you also be able to have behind the scenes access. So whenever I'm doing tuning on a bow, when I'm shooting a bow, coaching somebody, going to a tournament, whatever may be going on. So you'll be able to get that access too. Those are the 3 that I have on there. I appreciate everybody that's still on my Patreon account that's a member of some sort on there, depending on what tier you're on. Figured I would give this as informational to be able to let you know what's changing, what's to come. And then if you want to be able to check out my Patreon channel and give back or join one of these tiers, I will put a link down in the description of this video how you can get to that Patreon channel as well. All right, so what was the last big advancement in bow technology? I actually put this question out on my Instagram to get your feedback and what you had to say on it. And every single response that I got back on that revolved around cams, whether that be the technology in the cams or the adjustment on the cams for tunability, which makes sense because all of us as archers are getting more and more involved in our tuning. A lot of us are getting bow presses, we're getting draw boards, all sorts of tuning equipment. So the tunability of our bow that we work on ourselves makes a lot bigger difference to us, and that's a huge selling point for bow companies. So the big question that I pose is, at what point do we realize it's not worth buying the next biggest, greatest, newest bow? Because as archers, we buy bows, some of us buy them every year, and then we end up selling them in huge losses. Now, is it worth it? Is the next bow coming along worth it? It's up to you. It depends on the bow and it depends on what your pocketbook is telling you. But I will tell you this, I know what features and what functions on a bow that I have to have in order to look at one model and say, this one is better, or I even want to try this one. For instance, for me, and again, it revolves around the cam systems, I have to have a cam system on a bow that doesn't have a jumpy and super aggressive feel on the back end. That is more important to me than holding weight or draw weight or a lot of other factors, because when I get into full draw and I'm settling into my shot, if that bow wants to pull me back off the wall and take away from me too quickly and too aggressively, I can't ever settle into my shot and actually get a solid aim on target. So for me, that's huge. Now, there's a lot of other factors that go into purchasing our bow and what we need to look for, and I would like to talk about that really quick to give you an idea whether it's a hunting bow or a target bow so that you can make the best informed decision on how to spend your money. All right, so to start out, I'm gonna give you my list of go-tos and what I look for, and along the way, I'm gonna explain them to you so that you would understand them better and why I use them as far as what I look for. First and foremost, I look at grip. When it comes to beyond the cams that we talked about before, but grip angle, the angle that the grip sets at is a big one for me. Most companies now are pretty standard on the angle of their grip, and even Matthews has come out on their target line on their new bows, and they've come pretty close to the same angle of grip as a Hoyt and a PSE and the other bows that come along with the other manufacturers too. But there's more to it than just the angle, especially on bows that have side plates or bows with different types of grips, and that's the width of the grip as well. If the grip gets too wide, your hand cannot efficiently get into the bow and actually relax, and you become too in touch with the bow itself. You can actually have too many points of contact. And a big factor about that is because if we look at our hand, we have it separated here by what's called the lifeline. And we set the bow on the thumb pad side here, and then you notice that if I move my hand here or my thumb here, this part of my hand is flat. It doesn't move with it. It stays in place. And if we can keep a grip there, even if we move our hands a little bit during shot execution, we actually don't run into the risk of inducing too much torque into the bow. So it's really big on that. If we start to cross over this lifeline, we have opposing forces. So if we move my hand like this part of my hand is coming here, and this part is going here, and this part closes at different rates. So that in itself actually induces tons of torque in the bow. So when it comes to grips, when it comes to side plates, whether it's a hunting bow or just the riser grip design of a target bow, that's something to really look at. Now the other thing that I look at is what I feel like is a better example of what string angle is going to be, and it's cam to cam distance. That makes more sense to me than axle to axle distance, and I will tell you why. My axle to axle distance on this bow is roughly 37 inches, but I've had different bows that are 37 inches that have different string angles because from here to here, this distance was a lot less. Now they also make these bows with bigger cams that would be a lot more, so the cam to cam distance is actually what controls our string angle, and that's going to be more so cam to cam at full draw. Different shapes of cams actually produce different sizes away from the axle at full draw. So that's something to keep in mind and something to look at. The string angle is important because based on our draw length, that string angle can be more acute, so a sharper string angle or a wider string angle, and we need that to fit our face shape. For me, I have right around a 28.5-inch draw length AMO, and a 37-inch axle to axle bow, and with the decent sized cam on it like this, actually fits my face incredibly well. Now, if I have a short bow, like a 33-inch axle to axle bow, even with larger cams, that string angle becomes a lot too narrow, and the string actually has to go back further on my face so I get more face contact, or I have to dip my head down and I lose the repeatability of having my head straight up and down. Now, as a rule of thumb, and a question that I get a lot, if your draw length is under 29, you can get away with bows in the 35 to 37-inch axle to axle range, pretty much anywhere about, depending on the cam size and everything too. When you get over the 29-inch mark, you need to have either a 36, 37-inch axle to axle with a large cam, or you need to go up to a larger axle to axle bow, 39, 40, 41, something like that, especially if you're in the 30+ inch draw length range. Otherwise, you're gonna run into the problem where you're having to duck your head down too far. Now the same can be said if you're using a really large axle to axle bow and you have a shorter draw length, think 26, 27, maybe 28-inch draw length. You're actually going to see that that string angle is really wide, and it may not touch your face to where it's very comfortable to you. You may feel like you have to lean your head back or have an incredibly long D loop. So that's some things to look at on there too. Now real quick, what I also want to talk about is our limb angles and our limb pocket angles. So the limb pocket, if you're not familiar with that, is the area right here where the riser and the limbs all meet up in the device that we adjust our bow poundage and our peak weight and everything with. The angle of this makes a big difference when it comes to how the bow feels, how it aims, and how it's going to shoot and respond to you. For me, in a target standpoint, and really any bow, but especially for a target standpoint, I really like a forward-facing limb pocket and forward-facing limbs. This bow, whenever you get it to full draw, comes almost parallel on the limbs, and then when it releases, they go back forward. The reason I like that is because it gives the energy of our shot a direction to go, and it's more repeatable in my opinion. It's going towards the target versus having a bow where the limbs themselves are parallel to begin with and maybe go beyond parallel and then just go back to parallel. So those actually go up and down versus forwards. Now the other side of that is the holding for it too. When you pull this bow back and you hold it at full draw, I think it makes it more stable because of the forward facing limbs, because again, I'm pulling back into me and it's wanting to push back towards the target, so you have a force there to help you hold steadier and help you hold more locked in on target, versus limbs being at a parallel or beyond parallel set point where it just wants to go up and down, and you don't really have that factor of helping you get more steady with your self at full draw with the way the grip and everything feels in your hand. Now, most hunting bows are not built this way, and you won't find that, and keep that in mind if you want ultimate accuracy, especially at long range. It's something to look at and weigh your options on. All right, so the last thing that I want to talk about is riser geometries, and I'm going to get into this topic a lot more in a video to come in the following weeks, but I want to look at riser reflex versus deflex in the design of the riser in itself on the bow. This bow, the Super Focus here from PSE, actually has a deflex riser, and what that means is that the pivot point of the limbs, what you see right here, is actually behind where we put our hand in the pivot point of the bow for the grip. When you have a bow with a deflex riser, it's actually more stable because of the way it's designed. Now the downfall to that, it's a little bit slower, so you don't get quite the same speeds as a reflex riser, where the pivot point of the limbs here are actually in front of the pivot point of the grip. So it is a trade-off, it is something to look at. Today's bows are getting more efficient, so it makes it a little bit easier to be able to have these deflex risers. They also reduce the amount of torque that you can induce into the bow itself, and they make it a little bit more forgiving when you're shooting. So hopefully this video is going to help you out a little bit in regards to understanding what to look for in a bow, maybe help you make that decision on whether or not you should buy the next bow that's coming out that's the latest and greatest. Maybe it is, maybe it's not, maybe it is or not for you. So take all of this into consideration. I hope it's helped you some. I've got a lot of videos that I've actually written out and planned out and we'll be filming this week to be able to come out for the next about 2 months now. So I have a lot of content, a lot of exciting stuff coming out, a lot of good topics that I've used based off your feedback and what you would like to see. And hopefully you'll enjoy them and it'll help you along your archery endeavors. Look forward to seeing everybody soon. Y'all have a great day.